All right, cool. Guess we're ready to go here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live Ask Matt, a show where you ask me questions and I try and answer them. How is everybody doing today? I hope you're having a great week. I'm having a great week so far. Gonna go ahead and let some of the questions just kind of come in here, and then I'll kind of get into those. If you are watching over on the YouTube page, there's a link in the description there to the Google Plus page. If you head over there, that's where you can actually ask the questions. That's where I'm looking. That's where I'm watching for the questions. And you can like upvote which questions you want me to answer first and all that fun stuff. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look here. Yeah, so if you want to, just to give you a little bit of a context, I guess, you're welcome to ask whatever you want. Woodworking, you know, what it's like to be a new dad, you know, whatever. Behind the scenes stuff, that's all good too. So feel free to head over to the Google Plus page there and post your questions in that little like window thing, bobber there. All right, so let me get started here. Oh, look right up top. Art, I think I answered your question first last time as well. So maybe I don't remember. I don't know. Anyway, hey Matt, getting any sleep these days? Yes, I am. My wife is very, very kind to me about the sleep. So I sleep from like 4 or 5 a.m. till about 10, 11 noon, somewhere in there, depending on the day. I don't know. I get up in the middle of the night to change the diaper, although that's been a lot less frequent lately. I think since JR has been getting older, he's been able to sleep longer, so less diaper changing in the middle of the night, which has been super cool, but weird because I'm so used to getting up now. Got my coffee. I'll also mention that last time I went like way super long. Today I'm going to cut it off for about 45 minutes. I'm going to be doing these routinely. So I'm thinking every other month, around the middle of the month, I'll do a live Q&A. So if I don't get to your question this time, I'll certainly get to it in a future one. So that's the plan, at least. We'll see how it goes. All right. What is my drive to get up and get out to the shop? I have a ton of projects and I need to do, and just find work, family, and babies seem to slow down my progress. Well, yeah. All those things definitely have an impact on how I'm able to get out here in the shop and get things done. So like probably my biggest motivation is my desire to be out here, because if I'm not out here, my mind is, at least most of the time. So and I guess it kind of helps that it's kind of my living to be out here making things and producing videos about the things I'm making. So that kind of helps too. But there's just this like desire in me to be out here building things. So even like the weeks where I'm not out here, like there's been weeks where I haven't been out here like 5 days in a row, and it's like a weekday. I've been working the whole week. And then I'm like, it's like been 5 days. I need to get out to the shop and do something out there. So even like when I'm away and I'm trying to get like editing done or things on the computer done, which is a lot of what I end up doing, I have this really big desire to get out here. So I think that's like my internal motivation, is to be out here doing things, whether or not I'm actually making anything. Maybe I'll just come out here and clean the shop. That's something too. And that's really, it's not progress towards an actual project, but in a sense it is, because it makes it easier to get that project done when I'm out here actually making things, because I don't have all this clutter everywhere. So you can see like I'm in the middle of, I just finished up a bunch of cutting board pre-orders. So this is like my shipping station that I got to put away still. And I got like stuff over there, and I got cutting boards all over the place I got to put away too. So once I get those all away, then I can actually start working on other projects. And I'm going to close this door because I think someone's using like an impact driver outside. Okay, that was annoying. All right. All right, Mike. How you doing, Mike? Okay, so Matt, it sounds like you're getting geared up for teaching some online courses. I'm interested to know about the format of this. So the format is not totally determined at this point. The primary thing I'm working on right now is actually getting the content together so I can have that as a package for people. So the format is going to be, pretty much like any other online course type of thing. So you'll be able to buy the course, and you can go to the website and you can watch all of the different videos about that project or that whatever the course is. So like right now I'm working on, so to give you a little bit more of a background, I guess, a little more broader picture about this whole thing, I'm starting off with 2 courses that I'm filming. So I'm filming the farmhouse table one right now. So I'm getting that one to the point where the stock is all prepared, because that stuff's outside and I want to bring it indoors for a few weeks to dry a little bit before I use it. So in the time that stuff is drying, I'll be working on another course, and that's going to be a hall table. The hall table is going to be a lot more about joinery, and a lot of joinery in that one, different kinds of joinery. That's going to be a fun one, just because it's going to be more of a joinery focused course. And then the farmhouse table, the main focus there more than anything is dealing with big stuff, dealing with things that are heavy and big, where you really need to take the tool to the work. You can't really move the work to the tool. Milling boards that are way too big for your machines, and even if they are big enough for your machines, they're so awkward and heavy to actually put through your machines that you would need a second person or some other way of working with that stuff, because it's just so heavy and awkward. So that's kind of the main focus there. And that's going to be a pretty big focus of my life here as I keep going, and I'll be producing those courses and those classes, and they'll be available for sale throughout all of the rest of my life or something. So Mike, I hope that answered your question. If you want to know any more specifics, just shoot me another question and I'll get to it. Oh, there's another question for me, Mike. So any build alongs like the guild? Yes, it's going to be pretty much exactly like the guild, except with me. So yeah, Mark's format is going to be pretty much the same kind of format here. Each of the video courses has each like step as its own video, so you can watch the video and kind of go along. As far as releasing them all at once or like in a steps or whatever, initially for this first one, it's going to be probably all at once, or at least a huge chunk of it at first, and then it'll have a main release, since this is kind of like it's the inaugural one, I guess, so to speak. So I want to have a nice presentation so that it seems like it's all there and together as a full thought. So phone's buzzing. All right. In the beginning, what projects did you find have the quickest return? I've heard birdhouses and cutting boards are a good place to start. Would you agree? I've really never done a lot of work selling. That's kind of an interesting thing from my background, is the things that I've made in the past have never really been for sale. I sell cutting boards. I've always sold cutting boards since I started making them, because people are interested in them, and they have a good price point on them where people aren't unable to buy them, because they're relatively affordable in that sense that they're not some like multi-$1,000 piece of furniture. So cutting boards are definitely a good way to go. They don't take a whole lot of materials or glue in the grand scheme of things, and you can put a pretty good price tag on them. The thing you have to worry about with cutting boards, at least especially the end grain cutting boards like these ones, is the time you put into them. So the better at determining how much time you put into these things, the better you're going to be able to price out your work. And at least that labor cost will give you at least the minimum of what you need to be at. There's no reason why you can't charge more than what you think your time is worth. But that should at least give you an idea of how much you need to at least make off of one cutting board to make it worth it. So yeah, I think a lot of it also is like, what kind of market are you going to be in? Who are you selling to? So I think that smaller stuff like cutting boards, kitchen utensils, I don't know how many people buy birdhouses, but you know, maybe there is a market for that. It's really, I guess, depends on your area as well. My hair is pretty crazy today. But yeah, I would stick to the smaller projects and maybe just try a few of something and see if they sell, and kind of go from there, I guess. You do not ever use reclaimed. Do you ever use reclaimed materials? If not, why? I don't. I just don't. I don't know. I don't really have any. I don't know. I think I got a couple pieces here and there, but like, I don't like pallet wood. Absolutely do not like it. It's so much work to get those pallets apart for not much material. And there's always, you know, you can get the nails out, but there's always dirt or, you know, rocks or something in them. I have access to a whole forest of what I'll call reclaimed material because it's just sitting there rotting on the forest floor. So even the logs that most people wouldn't saw because they're half rotten, I'll usually still saw up, and there's still some usable material in there. So in that sense, I kind of do reclaimed because I'm reclaiming it from rot. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not something I'm super into, I guess. Mostly because I have a decent supply already of new material. Justin asks, what pre-made materials do you believe are worth buying instead of making? I'm not really sure. Honestly, I'm not sure what you're asking there, Justin. Pre-made materials. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank on that one. Maybe if you can resubmit that. I really have no idea what pre-made materials would be, like making my own plywood. I don't know. Sorry. All right. Sean asks, do you keep your website running and current, or does someone else help you with that? I do all that myself. That's a whole another time commitment thing. So yeah, all myself. Do all of the updating, and I set it up myself, and I do all of the changes and content for it and all that stuff. And it's something I need to spend more time on, which is hard because there's so many other things as well. Scott asks, hey, Matt, you're still going to be doing fine furniture. I don't see why not. I still am. The only thing that's not fine furniture I've been doing lately are the cutting boards, but I'm not sure if I would consider the farmhouse table is probably going to be. I would consider it fine furniture. It's going to be all Morse and Tennant's drawboard, and it's going to have all the same treatment as a furniture piece that's going to be indoors. So basically, what I'm doing with that is that design for that table is pretty common. It's from Anna White's website. She made that, I think it was a couple of years ago, and then Shanty Too Chic did a version of it as well with the benches, and that's all pocket screws, which is fine. So pocket screws and construction lumber, and that's fine and all. But so I'm taking this to the fine furniture level. This is going to be all solid wood with actual integral Morse and Tennants with real wood joinery that's going to last forever. For me, it's going to be an outdoor table. So that joinery is going to be able to hold that thing together forever out there in the elements. So that's kind of the direction on that. So I think that's going to be like the fine furniture thing's kind of interesting because it's different to everybody, and it's like that controversial, like what's fine furniture and what's not. I think that's going to be fine furniture, but you might not. I don't know. The hall table will be, and then I gotta finish this crib, which I think would still classify under fine furniture, maybe. Let's talk about period furniture, in which case we'll be doing that as well. I want to do a class on spice boxes. Henry wants to know, what's my method for jointing super long boards? ones which are way longer than your jointer bed. Yeah. So my jointer beds are 7 feet long. So I really don't have that problem too much anymore. I've jointed 12-foot long boards on there before, and that's been fine. I think the general rule of thumb is like 2 times the length of your jointer beds is like the maximum you could really joint easily. But on those long boards, though, it's hard because a lot of that is technique, because you have so much of the material counterlevered off the edge of the bed that it's going to want to try and do this on you as you're coming into the infeed table. The weight on the end is going to pull the thing down. So a lot of it's going to be putting enough pressure on the other end to counterbalance all that material hanging off the other end of the bed. And a lot of that's really just keeping that pressure consistent all the way across. The other thing is looking at the way that the board is. If you're doing a joint, if you try to remove a bow from the board, on something that long, I would actually flip it so that usually I do it bow side down or frowny face over the jointer. But in that case, on something long like that, I would probably do it the other way around, flip it up so that it is a smiley face, and that contact point is where you want to keep the pressure. So if that contact point's in the middle of the board, and you come across, that way you can actually shave down that center area, and you're not really referencing off of the ends. If it's a frown face, as you're coming over the edge of that bed, that frown face is picking up the end of the board, and you're really not going to, I don't know if you're going to get it to be totally flat that way, or if it's going to cause you a lot of problems. But so I do, on those longer boards, I do smiley face because it's easier to keep material referenced on the bed. That's, yeah. Thank you, Justin. Drawer slides, knobs, legs. Okay, good question. All right. I don't know how I must have just blanked on that. Didn't have enough coffee yet today. So it depends on the work you're doing. So drawer slides, if you want metal drawer slides, that's going to be pretty much all purchased. Most of the time, the stuff I do, I don't use drawer slides in my furniture pieces. I do the wood on wood, the runners in the case riding against the drawer sides. I just like that better for whatever reason. I think most of the time I'm able to get a better fit or better function than with metal slides. Knobs, I honestly have never made my own knob, but I know a lot of people do it, and that's a great way to kind of add another piece of interest to your pieces. So if you can make your own knobs or some kind of pull, which really gives a little more a knob that you make yourself can really pull in a lot of different elements from the whole piece and just make it look more complete and more custom. So knobs is a good option. They're not, depending on the hardware you buy, as far as cost savings go, you might not save a whole lot of money on knobs compared to what it would cost to your time to make them. Legs are interesting because I know some people might not be good at like turning a leg. If they want to do a turned leg, if you're not good at that, or you don't want to try it, or you don't have a lathe, a turned leg that you could buy would be a great option. Again, I've never done it, but I don't see why not. If that's kind of your direction, if it's more like, I don't know if I want to make my own leg, and if it's worth the money to go buy one, then go for it. But most of the time, it's going to be cheaper material-wise to make it yourself, and then whatever time you spend making it is going to go into it as well. But I really don't. So the only things that I buy personally are the metal drawer slides for my shop furniture, and I do buy the hardware from my pieces, which is like the knobs and the hinges and stuff. I make my own legs most of the time. I think all the time. And the other thing about legs too is you can buy, like, if you don't have, like, if you want a big thick leg, like a 3-inch thick leg, you can just buy the leg stock for that. So I've seen that on eBay. You can get it from different online hardwood dealers. You can just go there. You can say, I want a cherry 3x3 block that's long enough for a table. So they'll probably send you a 32-inch long piece, so you can cut it down for a 30-inch tall table, and then you can make your leg out of that. So that's another option as well. So if you don't have you want to buy a whole giant board, you can always just buy the leg blanks as well. I think that's a good value. All right, great question. Can you explain more about why you want riff sawn versus quarter sawn in your next project. My slabs are just plain sawn, right? Yes, they are plain sawn. So in that log, there's going to be all the different grain patterns. They have the riff sawn pattern, the quarter sawn pattern, and the plain sawn pattern. So the reason I want riff sawn in all of my project parts whenever possible in this project, I'll back up a second. So I want riff sawn in the base material, which is all going to be 4x4. So it's all going to be square stock. The tabletop is going to be more plain sawn look because that's going to be made of 2 slabs. One is 23 inches wide and the other is 16 inches wide. And they're from higher in the log away from the pith. So they have a more plain sawn look. For the base, I would like it all to be riff sawn. So I have nice straight grain on all 4 sides of all of my base pieces. So no matter what angle you're looking at it at, it's always going to have this nice grain that follows the vertical travel of the leg or the cross braces or whatever. What I don't really want is to have one face that's super quarter sawn and then one face which has the cathedrals, which is what you're going to get on a piece that's quarter sawn. You'll have one face that's quarter sawn, and then you'll have one face that's got that plain sawn look, which is a little more distracting. So if I can get as much riff sawn material out of those 2 slabs as possible, that's what I'm going to go for. And I'm going to try and get the riff sawn material that I can, the best stuff I can find in there. That's going to be riff sawn. That's going to become the legs, and I think probably the main cross brace of the table. There's a cross brace that goes under the tabletop, is at the top of the legs. That one I don't really care about because you're not going to see it. So that's going to be my least priority piece, and then hopefully I can get nice riff sawn for the legs, that cross piece, the big cross piece, and the diagonals. The tops of the legs as well could be whatever. That's not going to be seen too much, so I'm not too worried about the look on that stuff. What's up, Scott? What will be your next tool purchase? I don't know. Ask me in like a week or a week and a half after I get back from woodworking in America. I'm sure I'll pick up something there. As far as I'll probably pick up something small, a hand tool or something. Hey, Nick, what's up? Nick just wanted to say hi. He says, hey, Matt, just saw you live, capital live, and figured I would say hi. Hi, Nick. What would you say is a good woodworking gift to make someone? Whatever you want, really. That's the kind of nice thing about woodworking is you can make, at least what I found is, I'm assuming you're talking about someone who doesn't woodwork themselves. So in the case of that, I think I've had good luck with just about everything that I've made, because it seems like people just don't expect you to be able to make stuff. So even like this, I mean, to a woodworker, this isn't really super extraordinary. It's just a cutting board. But a lot of times when I make these things and I give them away as gifts, people are really, really happy, and they're always so impressed with this idea that you're able to make that. Like, it didn't come out of a factory, it came out of your house or your shop or whatever. So whatever you want to make, you know, if you want to make something big, a whole piece of furniture, go for it. I've done that too. You get an even better reaction that way than with something small. Right, another question from Mike. I don't currently have a real workbench capable of clamping pieces down for hand tool work. I'm trying to decide, build one or modify my assembly table. What are my thoughts? How much should my Rubo bench cost to build? Let's see. So my old workbench was a 2x4 style workbench. It was a 4 foot long bench. It was 24 inches wide. It was laminated 2x4s. And it was fine. The problem I had with that is it didn't really have a great work holding setup. I had one of those metal job vices. I had one on the front and I had one on the end. And I was able to hold stuff, but as far as the hand tool work went, it just fell short. Literally, because it was too short as well. But the more I got into hand tools and the more I got into the more I got into hand tools. The more I wanted to use hand tools, the more I realized that this bench was really holding me back because I just didn't have a good way to hold stuff for the operations that I wanted to do. I didn't have a way to hold things down flat to the face, so I couldn't clamp a board down to the tabletop and not have anything in the way. I could clamp it on the edge with the clamps, but the clamps would get in the way if I'm trying to plane the board. So in this case, with the Rouleau bench, you got the wagon vise on the end, so you can clamp things down directly to the bench, and you don't have to worry about the holding hardware getting in the way. So it really becomes whatever you want to. I mean, you can. I would say if you're not totally like, I want to do hand tools for the rest of my life, and I love them, and that's the way I want to work. Go ahead and modify your assembly table. I forget what your assembly table looks like, and if you have clamps on it at all right now. I'll have to go back and look at your videos. But if you don't have any clamps on it, maybe get some cheap clamps and give that a try. There's a lot of different ways to kind of clamp things without a whole lot of, it's a little more effort to clamp them, but it's not impossible. So maybe go that way, see if you like it. And if you get really into, maybe you get really down into this hand tool thing, you're like, I really like this a lot. And then you can make your decision that I want to build this Rouleau bench. And I'll tell you what, the Rouleau bench is by far the best tool I have ever acquired. And by acquired, I mean built. It changed my life so much in the workshop. It's incredible. I did not think it was going to be this groundbreaking. I wanted to build it for a while, ever since Mark did it in the guild in 2013, I think. I think I built it like a year or two later. But I saw it, and I saw other people had it, and I'm like, that looks like an awesome bench. It can get a lot of work done, but I had no idea like how much work you can get done. It makes things so much easier. The leg vise is super awesome. I didn't know how much time I was wasting trying to get things clamped down to whatever and trying to hold stuff. And there's just so much space, and it's just great. This is absolutely great. I'm able to really produce things that are, surprisingly, they're at a higher quality level than used to be just because of my bench. And how much did it cost me to build? It cost me $805. Wait, no. Yeah, not including the hold fast. Those were $35. But $805 for the hardware, and then the wood was free, I guess, pro bono. I worked for it. I worked for the wood. My time and effort and sweat went into pulling that log out of the woods and milling it and pulling all those boards off the mill. This thing started out as 2x20s by 18 feet long. They were just massive, giant boards. It was terrible. Would you recommend the Rikon bandsaw? Yeah. I mean, it's a nice little saw. I bought that thing in 2011, 2010. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I got that in 2010, and it's been great. I don't know. I went from a small like Ryobi benchtop, I think it's like a 9 or 10 inch bandsaw, which I would never, don't waste your time with that thing. Anything like that. It's not a real bandsaw. You can't get anything done on those things. So I bought that thing, and it's just been sailing right along. It's been great little saw. I think it's pretty good value too. When I bought it, it was on sale. I got it for $800, and that's probably one of the best purchases in the shop because I use that thing all the time. But I'm sure there's other saws that are just as great. I think more than the saw is the blade. The blade really changed the whole game of bandsaws for me. I got that carbide blade. That blade itself is worth more than probably the added cost you could have to get a better saw or a bigger saw. Now the question here from Justin. Is there a resource that you know of to source logs for milling? I've had a hard time finding certain types of lumber, and I'm considering purchasing lumber and paying a local sawyer to mill and dry. He seems receptive to the idea, but only sources local lumber. Okay, so that's kind of like the hardest part of the whole lumber making process. So, you know, depending on where you live, there might be people that have land that they need some clearing done on, or you might consider talking to if you're in a metropolitan area, there are going to be companies that do land clearing. That's all they do, is they go out and they clear cut for development. That's a great way to go as well. If you can find those companies, they'll probably sell you those logs. Well, actually, I guarantee you they're selling those logs as firewood if they're not already chipping them. So they'll go out there to those plots, and they'll just take a whole tree and throw it in the chipper, like the whole tree, not like little saplings, like 24-inch diameter trees. Those go right in the chipper. So chances are they might be selling stuff as firewood, but most of the time it's not worth their time. So if you can make it worth their time, and you can go there and you can get those logs, they've got excavators. They could just drop that log right in your trailer for you, no problem. So that's a good way to go if you have that option available to you. Otherwise, people cutting down trees for, you know, yard work, things like that. There's always people cutting down trees. So it's just like get creative with it. Check Craigslist, you know, all that fun stuff. Keep your eyes and ears open. Talk to your neighbors. Again, depends where you live as well. How many people are around you, what kind of city you live in, and all that fun stuff. If I start any contacts with local tree companies to try and get that lovely urban wood, I have to call someone. I've been meaning to call them. But yeah, sort of. The other thing with that too is watching Craigslist. That's the way I've been able to do it so far. Is people are always having their trees cut down and they don't want to pay for the disposal fee, so they'll just post it on Craigslist. The hard thing about that though is that most of the time it's already cut to firewood. So, but sometimes you can get lucky, you know, find the whole log there in the yard or whatever. Also, if you have a storm come through, that's probably like the best time, because people are like, "Oh, my tree fell down. You want it?" All right, Jack asks, after applying your final coat of armor seal, did you say in the video that you lightly sand with 1000 grit? Yes, I do lightly sand with 1000 grit. I don't usually wax. I don't really find a need to wax for whatever reason. The light sanding is really light. It's really the fourth coat. So in that video I did 5 coats. The fourth coat I sand that out, and then the 5th coat gets on really, really thin. So there's not a lot of time for any dust particles to settle in the finish, which is what you don't want for that smooth finish. And it's so thin that all you're really doing there is just covering up and cleaning up that 4th coat with that 5th coat. And then the 1000 grit is just there. Literally, it's just like I have my hand on the wood, I'm feeling, really let it rub really quick over it. It's super fast. And it's really just there. It's really tactile. You feel it, you rub it with the sandpaper, you feel it again. Does it feel good? Yep, okay, continue. You know, no pressure. You don't want to introduce any more scratches or change the sheen. Well, unless you're trying to, but I don't. All right, Kit asks, working on a 9-foot kitchen table, applying armor seal with a rag. It started to get tacky before I could get cover on the whole thing. What different applicators have I used? I've only used the rag, and I'm just curious how long you're applying this finish for. I mean, it really shouldn't take that long to apply. So maybe your applicator is not big enough. That could be it. Maybe you need a bigger rag. I've never had a problem with it getting tacky as I'm applying it. And I'm like, if I'm like working on, like when I was finishing the secretary, like I had the whole gallery and all the molding around the feet and all that. I could go around and put finish on that whole thing, and I could still go back to that first spot, and I could still, you know, tweak it if I saw something that was an issue. So maybe it's just you're not putting enough down initially, or the applicator is not big enough, and you're taking too much time to apply it. Maybe it's just too dry. It could be it too. It could be the air conditions. I don't know. Let me know, Kit. Oh, another question from Art. Hello, Art again. So you're looking for grain that is roughly 45-degree angle. We're looking at the bottom of the leg. Yes. This gives you straight grain on all 4 sides. Yes, exactly. So yeah, if the, hey, look, end grain. So in this case, this would be considered kind of a riffs on pattern. So this is the end grain. The grain is running at diagonal. This is pretty close to 45. It can be, you know, the closer to 45, the straighter the grain is going to be, but you can have a variation on the exact angle. So in this case, if I was able to look at the grain on the 4 sides here, looking at the grain on the sides, they'd be all straight grained. So instead of cathedral, you would have that nice straight grain line. Done. Justin asks, I feel like I oversand when I am sanding my pieces. How important do you think it is that the edges are rounded slightly? Is there an alternative method used to keep the wood from splintering? If you're final sanding something ready for finish, the edge should not be sharp because it will splinter and it will fail. And if you're trying to put finish on a corner that's so perfect like that, there's not going to be a whole lot of material there for the finish to adhere to. You'll probably have the finish fail in that corner. So you do want to break all the edges before you actually apply your finish. If you're trying to keep a really crisp edge on your work, keeping that sander nice and level, not applying very much pressure to the sander. So if you're sanding like a thin piece, like if I'm trying to sand this piece that's, I don't know, 3 inches wide or so, and I don't want to like rock the sander over the edges to round these edges off. So keeping pressure nice and consistent on here, being really attentive to where you have the sander, and I don't know how flat you keep it. That's really where it's going to come down to, is how flat you're able to keep that sander on the workpiece so it's not like rolling over the edge. The other thing is, if you have a sander that will accept different kinds of pads, you can get different pads for your sander. So I have a hard pad on that sander there. It's really firm. So as you're coming off, so the sander is coming off the edge of the piece, it's not going to be like deforming over the edge because the pad is too soft. It keeps it nice and flat. So if you're going to do crisp edges, if you have a sander that accepts different pads, or the manufacturer sells different pads, like for instance Festool does, that's a great option as well. Good questions today. Thank you. Let's take a break and say thank you to everyone who is here today asking so many great questions in the middle of the day. Oh, middle of the day here. All right, Henry, have I ever just straight given up on a project, and if so, why? So no, I have not just totally given up on a project just to be forever done with it. I do give up on projects periodically. That's why I have so many projects going on all at once, because I get bored with projects pretty easily. Maybe not that easily, but the things that I make usually take me a long time. So after like 30 or 40 hours of one project, I have to switch to something else because my mind is just somewhere else and I want to be doing something else. So temporarily give up on things quite a bit. I still have a crib I got to finish, if you remember that one. Oh, this is a good one. What's the most tedious? What do you find most tedious to do? Is there any woodworking that you do that you are still unsure or uncomfortable doing? So there's 2 questions there. The most tedious thing that I do. It depends on the project, I guess, because a lot of projects have some pretty tedious parts to it. So the tedious part that I'm going to have pretty soon here is the spindles for the crib. I have to sand all of them. And that's not going to be fun. There's like 50 spindles. Well, maybe not that many, but there's a whole bunch of them, and it's going to take a while, and it's going to stand there and sand the whole time. So that's pretty tedious. The secretary, there's a lot of tedious things on there, but I really enjoyed a lot of it. Turning the finials, that was really tedious. All of the carving of all of the flames, that was pretty tedious, but it wasn't terrible, I guess. Making the gooseneck molding was time consuming, but it was kind of fun because it was like 3 hours of just running the router, shaping a piece of wood. So I don't know, a lot of things I do are tedious by nature, but I still enjoy them. But I don't know, it's kind of funny. Okay, anything that I am unsure or uncomfortable doing? No, not really. If I am unsure or uncomfortable doing something, I won't be doing it. Most of the time as I look around here, I don't really everything has been done before most of the time for me. So like I've used the bandsaw before, I've used the table saw before. It's not anything new or extraordinary that I haven't done before. So you have a pretty good comfort level with everything that I do. And again, if I don't feel confident with what I'm doing, I'm probably doing it wrong. I probably shouldn't be doing it. That's probably the biggest safety thing ever, is if you're unsure about what you're doing, don't do it, because it's not going to be safe. Not because the operation isn't inherently safe, because you're making it unsafe. Hey, Patrick, do you have any plans on doing segmented bowls out of my scraps? Not really. That would be another tedious thing, that's for sure. I've never done a segmented turning before. Maybe someday. Doesn't really interest me at this point. I don't know why. I don't know. I know you do them and you're pretty good at them. All right, Scott S. All right, I've been given 2 large English oak logs, 36 inches in diameter. That's a big log. I don't have anywhere to air dry them. Can I slab them and then bring them straight into a spare heated room? Worried about drying too quick and cracking. Yeah, that's definitely an issue if you're going to be bringing it to a really dry room like that, because especially with that thicker stuff, well, it depends how thick you cut it, I guess. You didn't say how thick. But the thicker you go, obviously the potential from the outside to the inside is going to be greater as far as the moisture content. So as the outside dries, it takes time for the moisture in the center to migrate to the outside, so it can be lost. So if the outside dries too fast, you could have what's called case hardening, which is typically more of a kiln drying thing, but you could probably have that in air drying as well if you do it too quickly. If you can keep it, again, it depends on the conditions and how dry the room really is. But if it's a small room and you can keep it somewhat humid, you could have a bucket of water in there. This is letting moisture into the air. That helps as well. And if the room is small enough and literally the only thing in that room is the logs themselves, it would probably be fine, because, and again, it depends on how much moisture is actually lost naturally by the room, but that room will naturally gain in humidity as the logs give off moisture, and that'll help dry them a little bit slower as well. So you have a few options there as well. Again, depending on the conditions, you might be all right with that though. Oh, Matt asks, hey Matt, when stacking boards you made with your chainsaw mill, do you have to worry about snow getting between the layers and sitting all winter over like that, or do you cover them? Nope, I leave them as is. The snow doesn't really get between them. I guess if you had some really big stickers between each slab, there'd be more of a potential for stuff to get between them, but I don't really worry about it. Even the rain sometimes gets in there a little bit, but again, it's lumber, it's drying. When the rain stops, it'll dry just like anything else will. And the thing about rain on wood most of the time is that it doesn't really absorb. Like, you put water on a piece of wood, it's not going to go all the way through the board. It'll be most on the surface, and then when it starts to get windy or starts drying out, then the rainwater will dry off as well. All right, this is a really, really well-timed question for the last question, considering 45 minutes. Hi, Matt. How much fun is it being a dad? It is so much fun, and I love every minute of it. Is he tired?
He's sleeping.
Oh, yeah, he's sleeping. Yeah, it's awesome. Want to say
hi? Hi. How cute he is. His little overalls.
It's overall day for him.
Yeah.
So in case you don't know, this is my son, JR, and my wife, Lindsay. He is, 8 weeks now?
8 weeks on Friday.
8 weeks on Friday. He's 2 days away from being 8 weeks old.
Oh, I can't believe that.
Oh, man. It's just awesome. And Panka's here, too. The whole family's here. So, yes, it's awesome being a dad. I absolutely love it. I'm having so much fun with it. I'm going to miss Lindsay when she goes back to work, though.
Yeah,
so
on Monday.
On Monday. So that will be sad.
But you'll have daddy's fun time, so it'll be good.
Yeah. So this is my shop friend.
He's out.
Yeah, I've never seen this out before.
Well, he's out like this all the time. This time it's nap time.
Nap time.
You'll soon learn his nap hours. And it's now.
All right. So that's it.
You gonna say goodbye like normal person?
I'm kidding. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today and spending this 45 minutes with us, or me, and then them, sort of. If I didn't get to your question and you really need an answer, send me an email, or I think you can put it on the video as well. So if you leave it on the actual Ask Matt video, I can answer that in the comments there as well. But thank you, as always, for coming out today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for all your support and all of your fun comments and likes and views and all that stuff. Lindsay says thank you as well for making me so happy. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you later.